I'm delighted to be joined by our panel, which comprises Paul Clifford, in the middle there, Paul. He's the director of Flourish and works with landlords, businesses and communities. He's also the founder of the firm and specialises in advising smaller companies on finding their first properties and everything that entails. Kieran Smith, here to my right, is Senior Property and Development Manager and joins us from Anytime Fitness. Kieran leads on property acquisition in the UK and Ireland, business development for new and existing franchisees and new club openings. And our lovely gentleman on the end here, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning. My name's Simon Hooper. I'm from Chaiwalla of London. I'm the international and UK franchise director. Sahil, the handsome guy on the far left-hand side, is just getting off a plane from Heathrow. He's been in the Middle East for the last 10 days, so he's racing to get here in the back of a taxi. So sends his apologies, but it's my good fortune to get to speak to yourselves this morning.
Thank you so much for deputising.
You're
really
welcome.
Appreciate it. So welcome, guys. Thanks again for joining us today. There will be a short Q&A session at the end of this debate. So do feel free to ask any questions then. Prepare them in your brain as we go along. And just to note, please turn your mobiles to silent if you haven't done so already. Okay, let's begin. First of all, I'd like to know, what are the expansion strategies for the next 12 months for the UK's leading retail and leisure operators? I guess Simon and Kieran, how have the last 12 months been, and how are you planning your next 12 months? How do you feel at the moment? Let's get touchy-feely.
Okay, I'll race. It's been fantastic. We've had a brilliant 12 months. Basically, we've grown our network in the UK to 127 stores. We have a pipeline that's very aggressive, and we've also been looking very hard at international markets. So we've looked at the US, where we've been working very hard for the last few years, and we're looking at phase one of about 800 stores. So the reality is it's been a good market. Yes, there are challenges. I don't think anybody would sit in here and say there hasn't been. But we've worked really closely with our property partners who continue to find fantastic properties for us and work with some really robust landlords. And I think the beauty of working with a brand like ours, once we're in your location, we never leave. So we've never closed the store. And thank God, because we're working with good landlords and good franchise partners, we continue to move from strength to strength. And as we extend our network, that brings more innovation and it brings more diversity and it brings a lot more connection with the local communities as well, which we feel is an absolute strength to our business. And we really appreciate that and continue to focus.
Chaiwalla's 10 years old this year, isn't it?
10 years old this year, and we have an ambition. We're very hungry. We're looking at 400 stores in the UK to grow on top of our current portfolio. We have 8 formats at the moment. They're all proven. They're working in multiple markets. So again, you know, we're on a positive move. It's sustainable, and quite frankly, you know, it's down to the credit of the people we work with. Every one of our partners brings additional strengths to the team. We're very humble. We continue to learn, and we're in a great marketplace. You guys are a testament to that. You know, to operate in the UK for 10 years, you've got to be on your toes because the competition is fantastic in this country. And being on the international side, I spend a lot of my time in the Middle East, in Europe, and in the States and other parts of the world where everybody looks to the UK for innovation, the latest themes. And when you take a British brand overseas, you can't underestimate the credit and kudos that comes when you look at traceability, sustainability, and food integrity. So it's been a good 12 months, and we're looking forward to another good 12 months coming forward with your help.
Lovely. Thank you, Simon. Kieran, how are you feeling at the moment? How's business at Anytime Fitness?
Feeling great at the moment, Lisa. Yeah, 2024 was fantastic for Anytime Fitness. We opened 15 new clubs. We sit at 187 trading clubs in the UK. And I think the wider fitness market is really in a good spot at the moment. There's lots of national coverage at the moment around, you know, pubs being quieter and fitness spaces being busier. Penetration in the industry is up to 17%, which is an all-time high. I've been in the fitness industry 20 years. It was sub sort of 9% when I started. So it's, the growth has been rapid for us at Anytime Fitness. Hot off the press, we've recently been acquired by our Australian master franchise. We're an American brand and been trading since 2002 worldwide, 2012 in the UK. And there's nearly 6,000 Anytime Fitnesses in the world. And in 2024, we opened a new health club, one every 18 hours. So it's a very aggressive expansion plan for us. We want to open in the right locations. We've already opened 4 clubs this year. We're hoping to get to 20 this year and get through that 200 barrier. So we're feeling really, really good around the fitness industry in general. But I think, the franchise sector within that is very strong at the moment.
Great stuff, great stuff. Paul, as our advisor on the panel, how are your clients feeling?
Well, I represent, I guess, the other side, the smaller incubator, green shoot sort of businesses. That's who we work with across around 70 shopping centres up and down the country. We have about 5,000 different small businesses on the database, and that's always ever growing. And every time we move to a new location, it changes. There's a majority of our business is made up of local people and local businesses, and certainly the approach and the opportunity, I think, really for the industry in order to occupy spaces in locations that perhaps where voids are a challenge, is really connecting with these smaller businesses. And there is, I think, a whole piece of work in understanding these local businesses in order to get what we all want, which is sustained occupancy. We don't want a guy occupying a space or a girl occupying a space for 3 months, going and having this churn, which is a common issue. And generally the failing in that is, I think, the prep and the work that's done prior to the deal being done. So looking at the business plan, looking at their capability of paying. It's amazing through the communication I see. We aid these smaller businesses in communicating with agents and landlords to try and come up with a deal that makes sense. And it's I guess there's a degree of taking advantage, maybe in some cases, of the lack of experience of these smaller guys. And we try and help with that. And we do it really as a bit of a pastime to help them access this space with a view of them taking a space, being able to invest in it appropriately, and then being there for the long term, and then doing deals that make sense.
Yeah, that's important, isn't it? Being there for the long term, not just for the deal. Simon, Asian quick and healthy F&B is a growth area, as we know, with firms like Itsu and Farmer J's on the expansion trail too. How much room is there in the market for new operators? And how do you expect to grow market share over your competitors?
It's a very good question. The competition in the UK is incredibly tough, and it's excellent. So, I think like any business, we welcome that competition. It keeps us on our toes. We're continually innovating. We have a very, very strong food team who are constantly looking at new products from around the globe and products from within the UK. So yes, we continue to look at where we can take the brand. We've worked very hard with data and site finding companies who use a lot of data statistics to help us find the right locations, so that we're able to look into where we see the right demographics, the right locations as far as footfall, and also competitors. We spend a lot of time looking at our competitors, looking at their innovation, their ranging, how they're operating and how they're changing shape. And I think today in the UK, it's one of the fastest growing markets as far as innovation. So you have to be on your toes. So we have a very strong research team who are constantly looking at the menu. And I think it's fair to say that you'll see our menu changing every 10 days. It continues to be healthy. It continues to focus on the customer's requirements. And we capture through social media a lot of feedback from our customers up and down the country of every age profile, who are also, let's be very open, sitting in various competitors on a daily basis. So it is about the speed of response. It is about listening and listening with an open mind. And quite frankly, I think the customers here, particularly in the major cities, are very fast to give you feedback, which helps us listen and learn and adapt. So we continue to see good competitors come into the market. We go to their openings, we use them on a regular basis because there's something to learn from everybody. And as I said, we're only 10 years old, we're still babes, we're very humble, and there are brands out there that have been doing this for 40, 60, 70 years. So there's still a heck of a lot for us to learn. And you'll see our menus continually move and reflect the local community. So whether it's a customer in the store, customers on social media, or whether it's, in a conference like this, we capture the feedback. Last year I was smiling. In the middle of the summer, the Scottish stores wanted ice cream from Scottish cows with Scottish milk. Now, I found that quite amusing being a Welshman, but hey, it was delivered within 48 hours. And Mike in operations like, they want Scottish ice cream? No problem, we'll put it out for the country. And to my amazement, we were seeing this Scottish ice cream running up and down the country, being sold all over the country, and it was a really big hit. So sometimes when the customer gives you a diamond, you don't realize how big that's going to grow, but it was pretty spectacular. And it just proved to me that if you're open to learning, there's still a hell of a lot that the customers will support you with. Take it, use it, and adapt, and learn from the competition. We've got great competitors here in the UK. And, you put into the system how many competitors on this high street in Knightsbridge. There's 84 competitors. Now, whenever we bring teams over from the States or Canada or the Middle East, why London? Because you can walk out your front door and you've got 84 competitors to the left, to the right. Now, if you can't wash your face here, you're not going to wash your face anywhere. So it's a great market. It's a brilliant place to bring our international clients as well. And it's continuing to keep us young, that's for sure.
Thanks, Simon. Kieran, the low-cost gym market is now effectively the gym market, isn't it? With growth in CBD locations, local high streets and on retail parks, resulting in a huge 30% jump in sites since 2020. The Gym Group and Pure Gym, sorry to mention those, are opening 2 sites a month for the next 2 years at least, with JD Gyms and Bannatynes also in expansion mode. Is the market saturated?
It's not, Lisa, and I think looking at someone who's got Anytime Fitness running through my veins, you would maybe feel that we would be not fans of Pure Gym or the Gym Group as 2 sort of household names, and it's quite the opposite. I think those brands have removed barriers to entry for typically the younger people to come into fitness. And I think, like in anybody's lifestyle, you grow, you get a better job, you get a better car, they progress into mid-market and into more premium market offerings. And I think where we've been able to sit very comfortably in that mid-market is in terms of our product. It's of premium quality. It's the very, very best. We don't allow, from a brand standard point of view, anything less than the very best quality of equipment, high-end fit-out. We can sit in a mid-market price. So for a David Lloyd member at the premium end, or some of your other household names like your Third Spaces that are at a £200 plus price point that maybe only use certain aspects of the club, it's a nice trade down to a £50 to £60 a month price point. And similarly with a Pure Gym or a Gym Group that would be around 30 to 35. I know they're climbing in terms of their yields. It isn't so much of a heavy trade up for those people that want, a slightly different experience that we offer. So I think the penetration's there. It's only going to continue to grow, and we expect those numbers in terms of the national statistics to continue to grow. We're behind other countries that sit at sort of 20, 21%. So there's still growth for us to go. And I think where we sit, we certainly don't feel saturated. We go into markets with those gyms that you mentioned, and it's an educated market. There's room for new people in gentrified areas. We look at high residential areas. I think typically where we've looked before at your traditional high streets and retail parks, we're looking far and wide now. We'll open in residential developments, and we've had 5 particularly strong openings in 2024 that haven't got the key footfall drivers. They're residents is their main market, Lisa.
What geographical hotspots are out there for you? So, you know, where in particular, where you aren't at the moment, would you like to be?
So we are in a lot of commuter towns into the city, you know, Zone 5, Zone 6. We've had real success there. Those are markets, you know, those are marketplaces that we continue to chase because there's a blueprint for that model. You know, it's hybrid working. COVID has changed a lot of things for a lot of people. You'll have all sort of heard that before, but hybrid working brings challenges, but it brings big opportunities for us. So we're finding that your Zone 1, less densely populated locations, there's still success to be had, but not as much success or opportunity as the more residential markets.
Okay.
So it's those kind of commuter pockets that we are keen to continue to explore.
Simon, in a nutshell, where are you guys looking where you aren't already?
Literally tier 1, tier 2 cities up and down the country. We love retail parks. We've got 8 formats, so we can go into universities, hospitals, airports, motorway service groups. In fact, I met a couple of the chaps that I needed to see this morning, and already there's opportunities sitting there. So 8 different channels.
Give me a
operating.
city, Simon. Give me a city or a town.
A town. Obviously, London,
We know that.
Zone 1, Zone 2, Zone 3.
Yeah.
But literally, we're looking at every major city. York, Northumberland, we're looking at Glasgow, Edinburgh, Perth, Stirling, we're looking at Cardiff, we're looking at Carmarthen. So the reality is we've got the next 400 locations mapped on where we want to be with data. So from sitting in the office with a laptop, we can predict the sales, we can predict the rents, we can predict the P&L from the office. We also have the ability to look at all the competitors in that location so we can see how they're performing. So we know exactly with precision where the sites need to be and the kind of returns that we're likely to get.
Great stuff. Okay, so how are economic conditions shaping plans for growth, both for yourselves and generally? I'm thinking about minimum wage and national insurance contribution increases. You know, they're now happening. What impacts are they having? Kieran?
I think we're a franchise business, so we have franchisees that are opening their 3rd, 4th or 10th gym, or we have franchisees that are opening their 1st. So there needs to be consideration certainly around how they staff their particular gyms and how they incentivize their people. I think what we're really seeing is if the product's strong enough, a member will pay for it. That is, we've got data to support that. The big growth we've had since coming out of the pandemic has been in our yield. It's been going up £3 and £4 a year on average. We're opening new clubs at higher price points, and if the quality of offering is there and the experience is there, a member will pay for it. So I think that we cannot scrimp on quality. We cannot, compromise whatsoever on experience. But we know if we fundamentally nail those attributes and make it a great experience for a member, there is more opportunity than maybe we all thought a couple of years ago that we would have. So it's exciting more than anything.
Yeah. Paul, what would you say to that? What economic conditions are shaping plans for growth generally?
So again, with our small businesses, many of them fall beneath the threshold when it comes to the NI challenge, let's call it. But they do have additional pressures in terms of import costs, etc., which goes back to the evaluation piece. The way we overcome that is that we do an evaluation piece of businesses that come in. We look at a very simplistic business plan. So a lot of these people have just got an idea. They make cakes at home and now they want to try and insert further into a business. So we'll look at cost of sale, we'll look at their core costs, and then look at a profit position to then determine rent. So I think leading into that, trying to get their price point right so people are buying the product and making sure that it's keenly priced for the location it's in. But really, again, going back to understanding that small business and ensuring the rental position is in line with their capabilities to pay it, because they're saying, as I said earlier, I don't want them going after a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. We want them to stay for a year. And so that's the goal. Proper evaluation piece will determine the longevity of the business.
we know that business rates are a bit of a political hot potato at the moment. It's a huge issue for the market. What needs to be done to address that issue, do you think?
God, business rates. Yeah, I mean, everyone will feel the pain with business rates. It's now changed from 6 weeks to 3 months rate relief to now 13 weeks, and it seems to become ever more challenging. I think the way we look at it, it's a kind of a game, and we just have to play within the framework. There's no point in us moaning about it. It's legislation. We have to work within it. But with us, again, we aid small businesses as long as the RV is below, around £12,000. We can get them 100% relief, and we have to, again, guide them to achieve that, because the local authorities won't tell them. They'll send them the paperwork in the post, and if they don't understand it, they'll be paying business rates of $6,000 a year, whatever it may be. So, again, it goes back to advising these smaller businesses in order to mitigate these sorts of painful costs that have now been put upon us as an industry.
Yeah. In terms of the global economy, how disruptive is the current US president's tenure going to be? How do you feel about Trump's tariffs, Simon?
It's a very interesting question. Thanks for asking me first. I think two answers to that. The first bit, he's quite extreme in what he says initially, but then a couple of weeks later he calms down and it feels like there's a little bit more rationale behind it. So I think we're all learning not to listen to the first phase of what he has to say and then just look at the reality. And I think there's a lot of people, certainly with the American businesses we're working with, who have seen this behavior before. They understand it and they understand the rhetoric. So it's about understanding the ground reality. And I think one of the beauties of our particular market is very agile. So if you go back a couple of years, we had COVID. Then we got into the energy prices, where we had stores that were hitting energy bills from, let's say 10, 15 grand a year. It was suddenly 50, 60 grand a year. So I think we've all had to adapt and adopt to the economic market. We've learned to buy better. We've learned to use the industry networks. We're constantly being touched by some fantastic consultants who bring lots of good best practices to the table from the big global boys who've encountered this somewhere else. So there's always something to learn. And the reality is, we give each one of our franchisees, before they start, a full 10-year forecast of what we believe the numbers are going to look like. And we give them a lot of support with marketing teams, regional business managers. We have auditors. We have people who are there to help them. So, if you're a large corporate franchisee with hundreds of stores and brands, you've got your own financial team. But if you're a family doing this for the very first time, you need a bit of TLC and that umbrella of support which the team provides.
Kieran, how are you feeling about Trump's tariffs?
I think, just to add to some of those points, really, we've been through really uncertain times in our industry before. Fitness industry were hit the hardest through COVID. We had 4 lockdowns. We were always the last ones to open. We had the energy crisis. I think it's, cutting through some of the noise and the hysteria at times and cutting through to actually what is it we are facing. And I think, we're going to need to be smarter about some factors around where we choose, how we can price, what's the commercial viability of a business, what wiggle room is within a financial forecast to overachieve, to swallow some of these challenges. Because, we've had to do it with, light and heat of a gym has been challenging through that time for us. So it's just making sure that, the forecast is strong enough and we've got a robust enough business to be able to perform. And there's an element of we're just going to have to see, because...
I mean, it's something different every day, isn't it? So the news certainly isn't boring, that's for sure. We've had some great insights so far from our panels. I'm aware that time is whipping on, and I want to give the audience a chance to ask some questions if they'd like to. So do we have any questions or thoughts from the floor? There is a microphone in the middle of the aisle here. If you'd like to come and ask a question, please feel free, don't be shy. Anybody want to ask a question or share some thoughts? Right, you're all feeling pretty shy. Okay, that's all right. I thought that might be the case, so I have got another question. Guys, we all love a good deal, don't we? When it comes to streamlining deal making, how can landlords, agents and developers tailor their offers to match operators' needs and accelerate agreements? Simon?
To be fair, we have some great landlords who are already doing that. We like to structure a deal where we can invest as much as we can in the first 3 to 5 years in our own marketing. We're blessed with a very robust marketing machine that's got an incredible reach, and we can add value, we believe, to any location we come to. Now, that's not disrespecting what's there. We're obviously coming to the landlord for a particular reason, and that may be they have a great reputation, great space. They may have their own marketing machine that we want to bolt onto and learn from. But the reality is we're always looking for that initial period of time where we can really invest as much money as we can in the locality as well. And I think, to be fair, most landlords are quite open to that, to be fair. And we've had some really first-class support through the COVID period. And I think the landlords realise that once we're in the building, we invest in the fit-out. It looks fantastic. We're highly Instagrammable, so you'll tend to find a lot of our own customers will be absolutely posting like crazy where they are, what they're eating, and their experience. So there's no control over that, so it has to be right every day as best as we can. And I think it's about sitting down, being very open with the landlords and explaining the long term. When we're in, we like to be there 10, 20, 30 years. We set our contracts to auto-renew, so we're not looking to go anywhere. We're looking at marriage, and let's be honest, courtship is long and it's challenging on both sides. So once we fix on a relationship, we want it to last long term.
Great stuff. Paul, how do we improve alignment, not just on lease terms, but also on communication and flexibility? I think you said before that agents often want to push volumes of deals while landlords seek stability. How can both be achieved?
Yeah, I'd echo something. We work with some fantastic landlords and agents throughout the industry. But certainly, I think there's an old saying in retail, when you start retail, is know your customer. It's the number one thing you tell your floor team, your managers. And sometimes the communication that we see suggests that we perhaps don't really know our customers. And the type of communication, as an example, one I was looking at recently for somebody was that they'd asked for the quoting rent on a unit. They came back with a sticker, 25 packs. They said, was there any flexibility on the deal? They came back, no, we have lots of other interests. And that puts them in this dilemma. They either take the deal as it is and probably collapse because there's certainly a model would not have sustained it. In the reality is we guided and helped them. They ended up with a year rent free and then a step rent rolling to 20 grand. And that allowed them to invest in the business, and hopefully these guys will last. But I think there is a real opportunity to better understand these smaller businesses. I think there is a vast opportunity because these guys of today are the bigger multinationals, but there are a lot of green shoot businesses that have the potential. Keeping in mind all the national chains that we see today on the high street at one time in easier days were once a small business. And I think we could do a little bit more in terms of the quality of our communication, the degree of understanding and their sustainability, because I think this churn, which is something we talk to landlords about, how do you stop the churn, is by evaluating these businesses appropriately. And I think if you're not doing that, I would argue that a landlord's objective and an agent's objective are not aligned. Because if you take South Africa, I think we talked about this before, is in South Africa I was advised that if a deal falls through in 12 months, they have to give the money back, which is quite an incentive to get it right. And the landlord's objective is sustained long-term rent, not this churn. They want the lights on, the centre teams want the lights on. So I think that groundwork, that piece of work is a win-win. And I think that's perhaps the direction we need to go, particularly for small businesses in this country.
Great stuff. Kieran, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I think I'll talk from the franchising perspective. I think we too work with some amazing landlords, independent, national. But I feel it would, the thing that would help us really, Lisa, is an understanding from some around franchising. I think it's that age-old covenant strength conversation of, an agent transmitting the message through that actually, yes, this is one person. It might be their first gym that they're opening, but they're backed by a global brand, and actually it's the value behind our recent success in the UK, you know, the success we've had over the last 15 years and the growth of the brand is just being able to listen and to understand that a little bit more, rather than just seeing that individual as, are you able to do it? It's they're backed by a big powerhouse like us, and more understanding of that. Lots do, but yeah, it'd be great if some more could too.
Right, we've heard that, haven't we? Guys, thank you so much for a really interesting chat this morning. It's been lovely to meet you and hear your thoughts. And thank you for joining us as well. There's going to be soapbox here on this stage at 11 till 11:45. So do come and join us for that, which is always a great fun. And our next session is at midday until 12:30, where we're going to be discussing the future of out-of-town retail. So do join us if you can. Thank you very much.